as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. On Stockbox today, we're pleased to welcome Andrew Bell, the CEO of Red Rock Resources. So, hello Andrew, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So it's great to have you back on Stockbox, and we're of course talking today about the RNS that the company has released this morning. Can you explain? I've read the RNS and it's a little bit tricky to understand. Could you sort of break it down for us a little bit?
Yes, of course. I mean, the first thing to say is that we have to make an RNS because even though we've only put $90,000 into something that could be seen as it's speculative, it gets us a position, it gets us a strong position. It's still not a lot of money, but because there is an option there from the two secured lenders to buy out their loans, that would be more than $5 million should we choose to exercise it, which of course we would only do if the other things that we were able to get by getting those loans made it worth it. That is a major transaction in stock exchange terms, even though it's just an option, and therefore we have to put out an announcement.
And what about the opportunity itself then, Andrew? What can you tell us about that? And also on the DRC as well as a jurisdiction, as I'm sure that a few people may have some reservations about that country.
I think in a lot of places in Africa, the problems arise through ownership structures that become complex, or where the parties that sign are not satisfied with their deal, and as soon as they've signed it, they want to come back and ask for more. That's a particular problem in the Congo. And then government interference, general greed, which we call it greed, but then you're talking about a country that sees relatively few sources of wealth. They see wealth being created, and they want some of it for the people of the country and the people who think they're in leadership positions and that they shouldn't be poor. So they want the company to become rich, but they certainly want themselves to prosper as well. And you have a difficult time steering through all these things, and I understand that. In the end, the rule of law does work, as we've proved in Kenya. It takes the right mentality, and I don't think it's anything to be frightened of dealing with people, because people are human too. Once you understand, their drivers, and you start thinking about how to get a result, it's like any negotiation. You can end up by finding what the politicians call a landing zone, and I think we can do that. Okay. So I've been talking up till now in a very measured way, like a lawyer. But the truth is that that's one side of it. The other side of it is the mineral potential, and of course the mineral potential is fantastic, and the infrastructure there is not bad. You're quite close to networks of communication. And gold also is a relatively easy thing to deal with because you can fly it out, for example, if necessary. I mean, you can take it out different ways. It's not like, say, iron ore, where you have to. The infrastructure is almost more important than the resource. You have to have the railways and the ports, but also dealing with massive bulks. With gold, you're dealing obviously with very small bulks. So you can plant a gold mine in a bit further from centers of development, and they can still work extremely well. And of course, you have the possibility of great economies of scale, something that could be big. My feeling is that if we can get involved with a solution for this, we don't just look at the 3.2 million ounces. A lot of people's instinct would be value it at that, do that, start and find the rest later. I think it's probably better to take a step back and do some exploration and increase this resource, because to have current exploration and current exploration success and the deep understanding that comes as you do that makes talking about the asset, finding partners, negotiating with people much easier and makes you more credible. So I think that's the next step, to not to say how quickly can we get this in production, but actually to say strategically how can we make this a strategic asset that everybody wants to be involved with?
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think it's a big ask. I think it's something to be done quite quickly. After all, there's plenty of companies out there that have not, in the conventional path of development of a mine, got very far and got huge asset values very quickly, seen great appreciation. I mean, obviously, Greatland Gold is one example. Eurasia is another. But what can you say about them is that their strategic path of development has been very well thought out and has been very successful. And I think that if you had control of an asset like Kibali or semi-control, or were involved with putting the right structure in place and even having quite a small interest in any of those scenarios, you could massively prosper. And for a small company like Red Rock, which has, I think, a great deal of expertise either in it or associated with it, leveraging that and the experience that you have in order to create value is exactly what we should be doing, particularly at this stage in the cycle. So this is a very exciting opportunity and potentially a company-making opportunity. But one doesn't want to over-promise because this is an early stage. It's just that if I were, I think, looking at this from the outside as an investor and saying this is what the company had done, I'd say that the ability to move opportunistically and quickly and strategically and put this in place gives me some hope for the future and makes me feel quite excited.
Okay, so the Adida, I think that's how you say it, Adida Kanga gold project in the DRC. This was owned by Vector. It's now in administration, and Red Rock have the opportunity to take advantage of that. Is that right?
Yes. Vector had a 60% interest in the holding company for Adida Kanga. That is right. That was held through a BVI company, joint venture company.
Okay. Now, I've had a look at a presentation on the project, and the presentation, actually, the title of the presentation is Own the Next Kibali Mine. And the Kibali Mine, from reading the presentation, it's one of the most successful mines in the world, owned by Anglo and Barrick, worth somewhere between $3 and $6 billion US. And the presentation states that the Adida Kanga has the potential for 10 to 25 million ounces of gold and has already had considerable amount of money spent on the project. So can you give a bit of an idea about that figure and the scale of opportunity here?
I think you mentioned Kibali just now, and of course Kibali is the richest, best gold mine in Africa. It's a few miles to the north. We're talking really about the Kilimoto trend in northern Congo, which is home to probably some of the greatest wealth of gold in Africa. And so people have known, for example, that Kibali was a big and potentially very big asset for a long time. And yet, when Anglo Gold, Ashanti, and Randgold went in to develop it, that happened as a joint venture of those two companies because, in part, the people involved looked at the costs that they were going to have to incur there, over $500 million, and they said that Congo, that part of Congo, that expense, danger of instability, we lay off some of our risk. So it was done not by one company saying, this is such a great asset, so rich, so profitable, we should have the whole thing. They look at their risk as well, and they say it's more appropriate to have several parties involved. And if that was true of them, how much more would it be true of us? And how true should it have been of Vector? We might be seeing this differently because everyone else is looking at it and seeing a problem. And I look at it and I see a series of solutions. So then we put together very quickly something where we had a binding deed with the administrators who've taken control of the company, which would allow us sufficient access to the process to make us feel safe in putting in money to get the arbitration started, get the injunction continued into the conclusion of that arbitration. And then that, I thought to myself, that puts us in a very strong position.
Okay. Well, you've touched there on the ultimate aims, but I wondered just about timescales, and also can you quickly sort of summarise the risk versus reward here?
Well, timescale.
Mm-hmm.
I think that having put these two elements in place that I've described with the administrators and with the secured lenders, we can now move extremely fast to try to get the other stars aligned. And those could prove to be very quick and very successful discussions. If we got back to where we had the preliminary talks in 2018 with the what I could call in inverted commas the owner or previous owner of the asset in Congo, that was a very good, friendly understanding. And it could be that the conversation is a really easy, quick one. It could be that we can put something in place very, very fast. If we can come to a quick solution, obviously we'd prefer that. And I think it can be done. So I'd say give us 3 months and see where we are.
Okay, and risk versus reward?
Risk versus reward. Well, on the one hand, you've got your stake money, which is, as I say, small. On the other hand, you've got your winnings, your potential profit, which is big. It's not quite like the national lottery, where you could put in whatever it is, £2 or £2.50, and you can make 5 million, or if it's the European one, 150 million potentially or something. It's not quite like that, but then the odds are a whole lot better. I mean, when you look at the multiplier, if in the event of success, and the chance of winning, I don't think I've ever seen anything that looks so attractive to me. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to. But it's. I think our perception of risk is probably different from other people's perception of risk, because we know so much more about the different elements. But it's still, like all these things at the beginning, it's slightly odds against. But if you ask me what are the chances that we end up losing money, I say carefully managed, they should be quite low.
Okay, well, Andrew Bell, the CEO of Red Rock Resources, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.